Hey, everybody. Welcome to On the Edge. I am Rayanne Kruger, producer and host for this show. I have a very special guest today. We're going to be talking about something new that we haven't talked about in the past, but I think something that really impacts a lot of us. Actually, I've done just a little bit of research prior to this interview, but first, I want to introduce my good friend, Aneyas. I want to make sure I'm saying it right for one thing. I'm calling you my good friend. Did I
Perfect,
say your name
perfectly said.
correctly?
No, it's actually right. It is, I wouldn't
Oh,
have said
see?
better myself.
I think I've asked you before. So Aneyas Moghe, is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
good.
Aneyas, great to have you here. We're going to talk about something that impacts, according to
Mhm.
surveys that have been done globally, not just in the US or in India where you are, but something that
Mhm.
affects 62% of adults who
Yeah.
have said that they do not get enough sleep. So,
Mm.
before we dive into our topic about sleep deprivation and its impact, please tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I've been watching this show for a while now. I think one of your avid followers.
I
So
love that.
it's
Thank
really a
you.
pleasure. So essentially, I'm a communications specialist with about 8 years. I feel like it's longer. Eight plus years of communication work on my under my belt. And my specialty is basically I'm an empathetic person, and I know it doesn't translate well with numbers or this and that, but I put me in a room. I will make sure people will understand each other, and your message goes through.
Great. I
That's
love
the
that.
best way I can
So,
put it.
tell everybody where you are right now.
Well, I'm in India right now, in my home with my mom and dad, and that's a very common thing. We'll talk about it. I know it's a bit of a funny thing,
Yeah.
but I'm at home with my mom and dad, and in my hometown. I just moved back about a year ago from Budapest, where I was based for 18 years, working for an American public relations agency. Had a great time, but I needed to move on.
Okay. And I'm in Southern California, so we are 11 and a half hours apart. It's 10 a.m. in Southern California. What time is it in?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
10:30 p.m.
See, we are maybe it's 12 and a half hours apart. I thought we were at
Yeah.
11 and a half hours.
Oh,
No, that's right. That is 11 and a half. I'm
yes.
not a math whiz. I'm also in communications, but not math. So let's jump into our topic today. You and I have spoken and chatted
Yeah.
and also messaged back and forth on LinkedIn, emailed a little
Mm.
bit, and one of the topics and on the edge is devoted to diversity, and so
Mm.
you being in India is
Mhm.
diverse, but one of the things that I like to talk about are things that people don't normally talk about, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to diversity or disabilities or
Mhm.
the racism or races, the
Yeah.
difference between
Yeah.
races,
Yeah.
and feeling like you belong, and all
Mhm.
of these things that I've been talking about for a couple of years now. And Bennett, when we first launched On the Edge,
Mhm.
Bennett was my partner in this, and I Bennett has shared his struggle with sleep, and I'm an insomniac.
Mm.
I'm the type of person that will go to sleep easily, but I wake up at
Right.
4 a.m., between 3 and 4 a.m.
Oh.
every single night, and then I lie there awake for a couple hours before I'm able to go back to sleep, or I don't go back to sleep. So,
Ooh.
sleeplessness affects me. I've
Mm.
never thought of myself as sleep deprived,
Mm.
but tell me what sleep deprivation is.
Well, I didn't get diagnosed until 2 years ago, and this was after, let's just say, after 7 years of constant struggle. But it was longer than that. Little did I know, as they say. So 7 years of constant kind of going into the worst part of your psyche and just kind of beating yourself up for it. And I was like
Right.
at the threshold of I need to figure out what's happening. That's when I went to a shrink. But again, that was the COVID, during COVID time. So I couldn't really go and do therapy, group therapy or anything. That's what he suggested. And he said, do a kind of like a yearly checkup, do your health check. And I said, I will. And I did. And of course, I had my cholesterol was high. I had, weight loss and all that and everything, vitamin D and whatnot. But in the back of my mind, I had kind of read about this somewhere. I just came across this term, sleep apnea. And I went to my GP there and told her, like, hey, I also want to get this checked. And she's like, hey, we have a sleep clinic and you can, get referred there. But I had to tell her, the doctor in this case, to kind of make sure that this underlying thing has been checked. Otherwise, it would have just gone on.
So what was the thing that drove you to go to the GP to begin with? Was it
So
you were
this is,
tired?
we're talking like 10 years of just,
T-
things going on, and the last 7 years being the most intense. And my mom had visited me quite a bit. We have a great relationship, and she comes, visits me, stays a couple of months. This is in Budapest, and she noticed that quite a few times when I slept, that I would wake up choking for air, gasping for air, or just snoring absolutely terribly. And which is not new. The snoring part wasn't new. I've done that since I was quite young. I would say like 18 and above, I would say.
Yeah.
And I
So
was
you
very
knew
thin
you
back
knew you
then.
had a snoring problem. You knew you had a
Yeah,
snoring problem. Did you know you were struggling with apnea?
I had no idea. And nobody in my family ever had checked for this, or, because, being an 80s kid and all that, we didn't know any better until
Right.
much later, like now. And even now, it's still not the first thing that a doctor thinks about, which is an actually an inherent issue, which we can discuss later, that doctors, depending on which part of the country you are, which part of the world you're in, doctors themselves won't jump onto this first, which is not, and then again, it's a sleep deprivation becomes like the second afterthought. Everything else comes first. All the tests comes
Right, they
first.
try everything else, and
Yeah,
how can we solve it quickly and easily? Maybe
yeah,
it's with pharmaceuticals, right?
yeah,
Maybe that's where we
yeah.
need to
Or
go
you go,
first.
or you go some other tangent, basically.
Right, right,
Yeah.
or you're sent for therapy because maybe
Hmm.
it's just maybe it's something else,
Yeah.
some other issue that's causing this. So, your symptoms were snoring. Your mother
Sleeplessness.
helped you see that you had sleep apnea,
Yeah. And
that you were
the
waking
and the
up,
sad part
stopping
is that,
breathing, which is
yeah,
stopping
yeah,
breathing. You were
pretty much.
stopping breathing.
And literally waking up gasping for air because my tongue was in the way of my breathing, and I couldn't breathe. And I told my mom, like, yeah, it happens once a week, or at least once a week. I thought that was normal. I just thought that's what happens to everybody.
So
And she's
if
like, no,
if
that's
we're
not
not
normal.
yeah, if we're not informed
Yeah.
of this,
How
there
would you know?
is a good chance that you don't know or even know to look for
No.
this. So in sleeplessness, so you were not getting in, and did you feel fatigued, or did you just
Yeah.
think everybody's tired?
So here, those are the consequences of how I felt with what I was going through. So the biggest thing was, these are the things that happened at night, but essentially my when I wake up, I had a headache throughout the day, if not intermittently, but I always had one. I had mood swings, and again, these are things that you think, oh, just because that's the kind of person I am, or I'm just being X, Y, or Z. That's why.
Okay.
And grogginess was one thing, and fogginess. They call this mental fog specifically. So, I had that too from time to time, and ability to focus on anything for too long. And you could say I had issues with pretty much anything that, like anything to do with keeping up a routine, sticking to a routine, having energy, having the willpower to do things, having essentially sleeplessness or over tiredness. That's what it was. And being drowsy throughout the day. That's the biggest one. Being
Right.
drowsy
So
throughout the
it
day
seems
and
like this would
trying to
be an
get everything
obvious
done.
thing to go to, but maybe it's like, okay, I'm I'm low, I need vitamins.
Yeah.
I need to work out more. I need to eat
Yeah.
better. I need to get
Yeah.
more fluid. I'm having headaches, so maybe I'm dehydrated. So
Yeah.
there's all these things that could attribute to those symptoms except for the one big thing. And one
Yeah.
thing that I was reading that we should know and be aware of this, but there are 4 things that you are required to have in order to live:
Yeah.
food,
Yeah.
water,
Yeah.
air. These seem obvious. And the 4th thing is sleep. You
And
are
nobody talks about that.
required, your body is required to sleep in order for
Yeah.
you to be healthy and to
And
function.
function.
And to function. Yes, to
Mhm.
function. So,
And essentially, what sleep does at night is, when you sleep, your heart rate kind of goes down, your muscles naturally relax, and everything kind of just recovers. It's in recovery mode. That's what sleep's supposed to do. But I
it
had the
renews you.
opposite
It
effect.
renews your body. But you
Yes.
weren't getting renewed.
And I had no idea it wasn't happening. I had everything else happening, but not the renewal. And this is happening for a good, I would say a good 15 years. I had no idea, but it intensified in the last 10, and 6 years specifically was the worst.
Your
which
sleep is like your gasoline, your fuel, right? So
yeah.
if you're and we confuse how important sleep is with how important food or
Mm,
water is or something to drink, right? I'm not a big
mm,
water drinker, and I have to consistently remind myself I
true. Mm,
need to drink water. So like a car won't run without gasoline, your body will not run without that renewing sleep that you must
yeah.
get every 24 hours. There must be this much sleep, and only 1/3 of those 24 hours. It doesn't seem like a lot, which means that
No.
we're awake for 2/3. But when you
Mm,
get less than 1/3 of your 24-hour day where you're actually resting, where you have your eyes closed, you are sleeping,
yeah.
possibly snoring. I know I'm a snorer at times too. We have a
Mm.
soft snore, my husband tells me, but I refuse to believe it, but I know it's true. Um, if we don't renew that, other parts start to break down. I mean, when you think
And
about what would
systematically.
yeah, systematically starts to break down. If you
Yeah.
stopped eating, systematically your body would break down. If you
Yeah.
stopped drinking, systematically your body would break down, and you can't stop breathing. I mean, you can
No.
go a minute, maybe
Mm-mm.
more without
Yeah.
air before there's damage, permanent
Right.
damage.
Mm.
So, of those 4 things, we put sleep last,
Mm. And
right?
it's getting worse now in today's age.
Yeah. So, when you went to be tested, what
Yeah.
did that look like? What are those tests like? What was it all about?
So I essentially went to a sleep clinic, which usually is headed by either a pulmonologist or a neurologist. One of these, at least to my knowledge. Of course, there's a lot more to this. So I went to a sleep clinic, and this was during COVID again. And she had me do a questionnaire, this doctor, and I did the questionnaire, and they said you also need to do a sleep study at home because of COVID again. So they had this little contraption. It's a heart rate monitor. You put a thing on your finger, one on your nose. Just nothing invasive. Just calculates how much breathing and all that, and
So
oxygen is going
it's
in.
measuring how much oxygen you're getting.
Yeah,
Okay.
essentially. And you've got your oxygen meter on your finger, and then a couple of these little
To check your heart.
sensors. Yeah, yeah, check your heart rate.
Okay.
That's
All
all.
right.
And for me, it wasn't an issue wearing this. It was a bit cumbersome and awkward. They said we just need 1 day, 1 night's sleep where you have about average at least 4 hours of sleep with the machine on. Otherwise, the readings fail. And
Okay.
I managed to get like 5 hours, and I went to the doctor the next day, and that's where I did the questionnaire first and gave her the test results as well. And the
Okay.
questionnaire was essentially to do a mental psych test to check
Yes.
how
Yeah.
how de- how much of depression you might have, or this or that.
Right. Because
And
that
mine,
can lead to sleeplessness or too much
yes,
sleep. Depression
yeah,
can cause too much sleep
yeah.
or not enough sleep. Okay.
And
Go on.
going into this study, essentially, I was either I either had insomnia or I had hypersomnia, which is the opposite. So either you sleep more or you sleep less, whichever. I had both of them going from time to time, and none of them have benefits. So,
Right. Right.
and when I did the test and all of this, and the doctor's like, look, first thing she said, look, you need to sit down, we need to have a chat. And those conversations are you sit down and you listen.
Yeah.
And the first thing she said, look, you're young, so before I tell you anything, just remember that you're young and you can deal with this.
How old were you
And
then
I
at that time?
was just like, yeah, 35.
35. Okay.
35, yeah. 35 when I got this done. And she's like, you need to do this wholeheartedly, but before you do, let me just kind of bring you in the fold. You have what it's called obstructive sleep apnea, and there's three kinds. There's obstructive, and then there's the hybrid, which is a mix of two, and there's the central apnea, which is the second one. And I had the obstructive kind, and she said essentially what happens is at night you wake up X amount of times, not like you're not getting up and doing something kind of
Right.
wake up, but
You're
your
waking
mind
though.
doesn't. Yeah,
You're waking.
you wake up and you don't get enough oxygen because of an obstruction in your airway passage or an obstruction in your kind of breathing process. And she checked, and the scale goes from 0 to over 0 and above, so there's no end limit to the scale, and it's an index essentially. And as I mentioned to you earlier, so 0 to 5 becomes a normal scale where you could either lose some weight or just watch it, or just don't have
Right.
to worry
Right.
about it. It's under
Okay.
control. And kind of like 5 to 15 is mid, and essentially that's where you kind of have to watch out and keep it in control by losing weight, do so that XYZ. There's a lot of things. You can even get invasive surgeries to kind of correct your jaw or remove some of the stuff in your airway and things like that. And
Okay.
losing weight is also it helps a lot in that. And she's like, you're number 67, and it's called the AHI number, and it's essentially translates to apnea hypoapnea index, which is how many times you wake up in an hour, and these are called microarousals, so your brain never sleeps and your body never sleeps, kind of thing.
You were waking 67
67
times in
times.
an hour.
Yes. I had no idea this is even a thing until
So you're
that day.
never entering REM sleep. You're never getting
I
that
did not know
restorative
what that
sleep.
was like. Mm-mm.
Not getting
Apparently, I
that
didn't know what that was like until now.
So when your doctor tells you this, right? And
Yeah.
you've had this comes back with a diagnosis and
Yeah.
ideas of what you need to do to
Yeah.
correct it or fix it or help it. What does that do to you? Do you I mean, because I know you probably have felt like people think you're lazy.
Yeah.
People
Me
think
too. Yeah.
you're unwell in other ways. You're overweight.
Unreliable or this or
Right.
that or
Right.
yeah.
You can't focus.
Mm-mm.
What does that do for you? What is the impact of having a true diagnosis like this?
As I said, when I got this done, I was at the end, at the literally at my wits end when I got this done. So I was at bottom, like rock bottom, and my confidence had taken an all-time low. Self confidence had just gone out the window, and I'm a people's person. I had become very isolated, and I didn't meet my friends. I didn't have people over. I love to cook. I used to have friends over coming from time to time, and I stopped enjoying things that I did. And the worst was, again, I felt like I was the prime person involved in this. Nobody else is. I wasn't pointing fingers at anybody else saying, "Oh, this or that." I
Right.
felt that I was being lazy. I felt like that I was
You felt
unreliable.
that.
I
So
felt, yeah,
your self-confidence was also impacted before the
completely,
diagnosis. So when you get
completely.
this diagnosis, does it feel like hope? Does it feel like there's hope here?
It
I can
should,
actually solve it.
it should, but it felt like, oh dear, I have to do this now. I would honestly would have. I wish I kind of had embraced it that way, but I'm glad I went through my process. The first thing I felt like, oh really? This is what I get. These are my cards. These are the cards that I've
Yeah.
been dealt with.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And there's a pushback, this mental pushback that I had, because then the doctor sat me down
Well,
saying,
because you
"Look,
have to change.
yeah,
Nobody wants to change. You have to
yeah,
change how you sleep,
yeah,
what you do before you sleep. All of
yeah,
this involves change, and change is uncomfortable,
mm,
right? Even though you are miserable,
yeah,
you're miserable and it's impacting your life and your work.
yeah."
To think about change is can be really overwhelming.
And that probably had a lot, as you said, that had a lot to do with me wanting to embrace what's coming next. And the doctor like, let's sit you down, and she just said that, look, there's there's no cure for this in your case because of severity, and yeah, you can do an endoscopy to get checked and remove some
Right.
stuff, but
Right.
it's not gonna solve the problem. Yeah, weight loss is definitely recommended because I had gained a lot of weight as a transition into this illness kind of thing. Just And she's like, but there's a treatment and it's non-invasive, and it's this thing called the CPAP, and it's a very common treatment, and it's the best kind of most effective treatment there is.
Okay, so what's
And
a
so my
CPAP?
that's it. Yeah. So CPAP is this machine that kind of creates constant positive airway pressure in my airways
Okay.
and makes
So
sure that my
it's
tongue doesn't
actually
collapse.
pushing oxygen into your down your throat.
Yeah, it's essentially, and think about it. This is how the doctor said. Like when you're drinking from a straw, and you've got like a little bend in the middle, and your air doesn't flow through properly, right? But as
Okay.
soon as you wear this machine, which has like this constant airway pressure, and it's not forceful enough, like as if you're trying to push air in.
Right,
But this
right.
is so it kind of keeps the straw straight and inflated.
Okay. Okay.
So that's it, and make sure that the obstructions are are cleared.
Okay. So you receive the diagnosis, you accept the diagnosis.
Yeah, that acceptance
So
took me 3 months
3 months.
until I had the machine on day two, but because I was stubborn, or I was like, I don't need to. I was 35, like I don't need this in my life, that I just have to wear a stupid machine to go to sleep. And I was single, so it kind of made me even more embarrassed to even ever think about dating again. All those initial thoughts,
Right, right.
and three months I didn't wear it, and then
You
things
had it,
got worse. Yeah,
you
I didn't
had
wear
it.
it for 3 months.
You
Yeah,
refused to wear it. You
yeah,
didn't
for
even
three
try
months.
it. You
I
didn't even
tried
try
it
it.
once. I tried it a couple times, but I didn't. I was supposed to wear. So the way this treatment works is you're supposed to have 70% compliance. So let's say you use it for a year, you make sure you use it for 70% of the time, in that year. Otherwise, your kind of treatment's not going to work as much.
Right.
So it's all about compliance over 6 hours of sleep or
So
something
are
in that
you,
20
by
sessions.
using this and the compliance of
Yeah.
its use, are you retraining your your body, or is
In
it something you have to wear now for the rest of your life?
It's something I have to, in my
Okay.
case specifically, I have to wear for the rest of my life. But at present day, now let's get back to the present. Right now, I love it. I can't sleep without it. I have 90%
Well, you
compliance for the
weren't
last two
sleeping
years.
without it. You were
Yeah.
not sleeping without it,
Yeah, I
so
was.
all right,
Now it's for
right.
me, even if it's a 15-minute nap, I'll sleep with it on.
Okay, so
For me,
tell us what it is. What does it look like? It's got
so
a
it's got there's a different masks and different mask fittings. So either you could have a full face mask that kind of, sorry, it does this, kind of has it on on your face, and either you do that, or there's a nasal pillow mask which kind of sits on your nose here and just this big.
okay,
And there's also another which is essentially a pillow that kind of inserts a bit, but it's
okay,
again on your nose.
okay,
And I took to the pillow, so that just sits on my nose
okay.
and has like a
And it
chin
doesn't
strap
have
and
to
all
be
that.
taped on or anything. It
No.
just
So it
sits
comes
around.
with like a strap, like a chin
Okay,
strap kind of
okay.
thing. And initially, you kind of, it seems a bit cumbersome and all that, but you put it on, and now I I actually look forward to sleeping with it because I know I get proper. This is what normal people sleep like. I didn't know what that was like until now for the
So
first
what
time.
what did healing look like? And you're using it. How much did you, I mean, was there, you needed to use it for 3 months before you start to feel the difference, or did you feel
So
different?
that's very relative. For depends on the person. In
Okay.
my case, I honestly, the weird thing is now I don't know what it felt like before. So it's so weird. I know I went through it for the last 15 years, but to imagine what it actually felt like before I was wearing the machine, it's kind of cloudy. I don't know what it felt like in a very raw sense of the word.
Right.
But
Right.
now I
Well, you were flying through clouds. I mean,
yeah,
you weren't functioning the
no,
way your body was meant to function because you weren't getting
absolutely.
one of the 4 primary things
Hmm.
your body needs. So what has changed for you? You've been using the CPAP for 2 years now?
Yes, for 2 years.
For 2
Yeah.
years now. What changed for you?
For me, I actually wake up without headaches. Throughout the day, I don't have any headaches. I actually don't have any foggy kind of brain fog, as this. I don't have brain fog.
Okay.
And I don't get sleepy throughout the day. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, unless I
Okay.
choose to and take a nap.
Right.
And I feel like I can socialize again, and I feel like if I wanted to, I can. And I'm trying to do things that I enjoy again. I'm cooking again. I love to bake and stuff like that. So I'm spending time doing creative stuff, and I enjoying life again. To put it
Okay.
bluntly.
So, what a feeling of relief this must be
Yeah.
for you to be now enjoying those things, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to think about what's next for you, right?
Yeah.
To think about dating, to think
Yeah.
about your next job,
Yeah.
right? Because I know that the symptoms that you were having, everything that was going on before you received your diagnosis, before you started your treatment,
Mm.
it impacted your career.
Absolutely did. I started off strong, like anybody does when they start their career. I was so excited. I was really pumped up. I had this plan that I wanted to kind of follow through, and it was a small firm, but it was a very tightly knit firm, so there was always room to grow if I asked for them. But for me, I did a lot of things, and I kind of went from just the communication specialist to branding and marketing as well. And I had to teach myself on the way up there, like anybody does, right? And you pick up stuff. Uh, but for me, then it became at the end, just to kind of stay afloat meant that I had to give in a lot of energy and a lot of focus, and I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I couldn't rise up, or I couldn't, you know, I couldn't be brave enough to ask for this or that or raise or whatnot, because I knew that I wasn't performing at my best, and it's not getting any better.
And everything was impacted. Your mental
Yes,
well-being, your
physical too.
physical health,
Yeah,
relationships,
yeah,
everything was impacted. Quality of your work,
yeah.
right? So
And to
now
make matters worse, COVID always, it kind of came in, and it. So I joked about this, but for me, I was working remotely even before COVID happened. So for me, that wasn't a game changer.
right.
But COVID gave me an excuse not to meet people anymore, and that depression made it worse, basically.
So all of these things were a direct result of sleep deprivation. You
Yeah,
just were not getting
totally.
an
Mhm.
essential fuel, refueling every night that you needed.
Yeah.
So how now that it's been 2 years,
Hmm.
you're motivated now.
Yes.
You spend time with people.
Yeah.
You're not reclusive anymore.
No.
You're feeling like you're ready now. I mean, you left your job to solve
Yeah.
this issue.
Yeah. Had to.
You left your job in Budapest and came home to be with family
Yes.
to solve
And
this
I
issue.
need to sort of stop you there, just because I wanted to make sure that I knew I had privilege, and I have a great supporting family and some really good friends, but I didn't even speak to them about my depression. I just didn't. I didn't know I was going through it. So it can happen to anybody with the best sort of surroundings too. So that's it. I hope nobody else goes through that. And
Did you blame other things, other people? Did
no,
you think it
just
was
me. That's
okay,
the
so
kind of
you
person I am.
knew
It was
so
always me.
so
Everything
you
was
kept
always me. I
and you
never wanted to blame anybody else for that.
and you kept it inside.
Yes, for 18 years. I had no idea.
That's
But as I
unbelievable. I'm
said,
so
because of the support of my family and my friends, I said, you know what, I need to kind of stop and uh, take a breather. We had the reset button, and I spoke to my boss saying, hey, I need to go home and work from there. But at that time, COVID had just finished, and they said we couldn't transition to me going home for some time. I said, all right, in that case, I'd like to quit. And we had an amicable thing. Uh, but as I said, I had to make a choice, and I did. And I told my mom and my brother, think, and a couple of my friends, like, "Hey, I'm gonna have this conversation with my boss, but it's gonna end with me." A day before, I said, "I've already made up my mind. I think I'm gonna just take some time off."
right. Right. Well, clearly you did the right thing
Yeah,
and you're on the right path for yourself, for your family, for your career, for
yeah,
ultimately for your very long life
Hmm.
that is still left to live.
Yeah,
So if you could give somebody some advice that is struggling,
Hmm.
what would you tell them?
First thing I'd say is get a proper medical care. Just go and see a doctor, a GP. Tell them you're going through this. Doesn't matter. It might not be the same thing as I had, but get to the bottom of this before waiting for like 10 years. Don't wait. Just take some support with you and go get yourself checked, whatever that is.
And be an advocate for yourself because you had to ask for this. You
Yeah.
had to ask for it to be checked.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
was not something that the doctor added to the list of things to check. I mean,
No.
we're going to check your blood, we're going to check your
Yeah.
breathing, we're going to check, make sure that your body's absorbing oxygen. We're going to check
Mhm.
all of these things, right? To make sure that you have enough vitamin D, that your liver is functioning,
Well,
that your colon is
advocate for yourself.
functioning but sleep was not on that list.
No.
Checking your
And
sleep
that
was
might
not
be
on
the
the list.
last. Yeah. And the thing is, with sleep apnea specifically, you don't have to be fat. You don't have to be thin. You could be any of those things, and you might not even be snoring, but you could still have it. I don't want to put the fear out there,
Right.
but just if you do feel like you have issues sleeping, or you don't have energy, or you're groggy, or you have mood swings, or you can't focus on things, it could be a lot of things, but it also could be something that I went through, which is called sleep apnea, and you should definitely get it checked with the sleep technician.
Do you have any resources you can share, or we can put them in
So
the
I wish I did, but the thing is, depending on where you are, which
yeah,
country you're in, the sleep care changes drastically.
yes.
So
Well, I'll share
I
in the
recommend
comment
going to a sleep clinic.
section a couple of links to, I think the WHO website, the World Health
Mm,
Organization
mhm.
has some information, and then I'm sure the NIH
Yeah,
has some information, as well as the health organization in America
right.
that will, and then if you come across anything, I'm sure that there are
I do
books
have a
or
resource though.
okay.
It's more for kind of seeing what other people are going through in this specific thing with sleep apnea. It's a Reddit subreddit called
Oh,
sleep apnea, but it's great because when I had it and diagnosed and I read so many of these, and I was like, oh, these guys are going through the same thing. And a lot of
that's
people like, I
amazing.
had it for 15 years and I just got it diagnosed at the age of 40. Or, I woke
Right.
up, worst case scenario, the dude's like, I woke up in the hospital because I fell asleep behind the car. And then I got it checked. You don't want that to happen to you.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen for sure.
No.
And gosh, I'm so glad you got it solved, and
Yeah.
wish you the best of luck in
Thank you.
your job search now. Anybody out
Yeah.
there that's looking to hire, Aneyas has a great history in communications and marketing and branding, and we wish you the best of luck. I can't thank you enough for sharing this. I know it's hard to talk about something that was so impactful, but
Right.
you were eager to share your
I was.
experience, and I so appreciate you. Thank you.
But thank you for giving me the platform. And I just hope, if anybody's going through any sleep issues, just go get it checked. Don't wait. It gets worse if you don't do it now.
Don't wait.
Yeah.
My guest today is Aneyas Moghe,
Thank you.
out of India. What's the name of your town?
So it's called Nasik.
Nasik. Okay.
Mhm.
Nasik, India. And we are here to talk about issues that impact each of us or one of us. And so I can't thank you enough for sharing this really powerful information that has changed your life. And we hope it will help others.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.